1966, the Chicago Bears drafted the son of a Pennsylvania coal miner in the 4th round. Doug Buffone would go on to play 15 seasons for the Bears and later be named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time. His allegiance to the Bears never waned, even when he took to the microphone and witnessed some horrendous Bears teams.
The fact is, there's not the fear put into them, because this game is a lot about fear. You either do the job, or you go home and go sell hamburgers at McDonald's.
Doug told it like it is, and that's part of the reason his nephew John has dedicated this show to Doug. And now John Buffone is spreading Buffone-branded beratements just like his uncle.
Win the football game. You're the head coach. I don't care what you have your fingers in. I don't care what you're meddling in. You're the head freaking coach. We get it. You're the most important guy on the staff. You don't have to keep trying to legitimize that.
And he's got pep talks too.
I love this team. And I know everyone watching and listening loves this team. So while we may be pessimistic and cynical, every one of us still has hope that the stars will align at some point. And if that ever does happen, you'll be glad you stuck around.
John is telling it like it is here on Buffone 55. And joining John are Alyssa Barbieri, managing editor of USA Today's NFL Wires, including Bears Wire, and also Danny Shimon, lead game and draft analyst for the Barroom Network. Buckle up and bear down. This is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55. It's a fast-paced approach at breaking down those lovable Chicago Bears. My name is John Buffone, and with me, as always, is my co-host and producer, Alyssa Barbieri. Alyssa, we snapped back to reality on Sunday with the Bears falling flat to the Minnesota Vikings, and then you throw in the Justin Fields injury, and it was just a rough game to watch. How you doing?
You know what, John? I knew better. I knew better going into this game. But even after that Washington one, I'm like, oh my God, there's a little momentum. Could they finally turn the corner? And then same old, same old.
They're really good at that. They're really good at just giving you that just little nugget to hold on to. And you're like, wait a minute, are they putting it together? Is this something to build on? Is this the first step in an evolution of this team? And then in the next week, no, you idiot. What were you thinking? Why would you ever assume that? So once again, the Bears fall flat. And here we are talking about yet another Bears loss.
The 15th in the last 16 games. I'm here to bring you depressing stats all night.
Oh, I can't wait. When's the last time they won at home?
September 25th, 2022.
It was a different world. It was
literally a full calendar year, right? We were talking about the losing streak almost reaching a full calendar year. Haven't won at home in more than a year now.
Oh man, that you really are full of crappy stats tonight. Thank you. I'm looking forward to all of this. But before we jump into this mess, can you give our listeners and viewers a rundown of how Buffone 55 works?
Absolutely. So we will begin with the classic B55 segment. That's when I ask John 5 questions about the Bears, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. The 55 is John's way of paying tribute to the great Doug Buffone, his uncle, his mentor, and a man who played 15 seasons with the Bears and wore number 55. Then at halftime, we're going to break down the Bears' upcoming opponent. And this week, we're going to take a deep dive on the Las Vegas Raiders, who are riding a 2-game winning streak, something that has never happened during the Matt Eberflus era. We're then going to finish things up with a free-for-all that we call Buffone's Basement, where Danny Shimon joins John and me, and the three of us return to our traditional Bears therapy session, which we know all of you barflies need just like us. So, John, are you ready to get back into this?
I had to turn that knife a little bit with the back-to-back win stat there. I do appreciate that. Yeah, I'm as ready as I'm going to be for this. Let's go.
Okay, then. So we're going to dive right into our B55 segment. That's when I'm going to ask John 5 questions, and he's somehow going to keep his responses to 55 seconds, even though there is a lot to discuss. So let's go ahead and get it started. So, John, Sunday's game was filled with lots of frustration. There was plenty to get mad about during the Bears' 19-13 loss to the Vikings. But what really stuck out to you? 55 seconds are on the clock, and go.
Oh boy, this is where this segment gets hard, keeping it to under 55 seconds. But for me, it was just the same song and dance. This team, this coaching staff, this franchise is just consistently inconsistent. If they score a bunch of points one week, they'll be stagnant the next. If the protection is good one week, it'll be bad the next. If they throw for a bunch of yards one week, they'll throw for like 140 the next. You just can't predict what this team is going to do week to week other than probably lose. They had every chance to control that game, and once again, they failed to answer the bell. I don't think I'm saying anything groundbreaking here, but there is something desperately missing from this team that keeps them from actually being a contending professional football team. Bad coaching, losing culture, inconsistent quarterback play, defensive gaffes, stupid penalties. Yeah, you name it, they got it. And as we have said, the margin for error for this team is razor thin, and they completely blow past that every week.
Yeah, I think my biggest frustration from this game was just I let my hopes get up for the offense. This is an offense that was averaging 34 points over the previous 2 games, and they put up a measly 13 points against a Vikings team where they could have loaded on the points. So it was disappointing, especially considering you saw the defense take a step forward, and they allowed 19 points the fewest of the season. And it's a situation where you need the offense to step up, especially after Justin Fields. It looked like he turned the corner, and then it looked like Luke Getsy had turned a corner too as play caller, but we should know better. Like you said, it's same old, same old. It's always one step forward, like 5 steps back, or maybe 15. I don't know.
Yeah, nothing ever clicks at the same time. The defense plays well, the offense shuts down. The defense falls apart, and then the offense, starts to pick up. And so it's just that can be said for not just a game or a season, but that can be the Bears in general. You can look back when the Bears actually had a fun offense. They had one of the worst defenses in Bears history. It was 2014 or so with I think with Mark Trestman or whoever it was. They had a really good offense. The defense was historically bad. And then you look at the early 2000s where they had incredible defenses, but the offenses were pretty bad. It just never clicks at the same time. I mean, I know that that's asking for a lot, but that is kind of what being a good football team is, having at least some progress on the offensive side and on the defensive side at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a lot to ask from a good franchise, which is what we're hoping the Bears become, but it's clear obviously from the last couple decades, right, that this is not it. If they want, they can get there, hopefully, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. And unfortunately, last Sunday's loss was another example of that.
100%.
Okay, so one of the biggest storylines to come out of the game was the injury to Justin Fields. The Bears quarterback suffered a dislocated thumb on his right throwing hand, and he's officially doubtful for Sunday against the Raiders. So if Fields misses significant time, what does that mean for him? And what does it mean for the Bears organization as a whole? 55 seconds. Good luck.
Well, in the short term, I guess it doesn't mean too much. The season's already shot. However, in the long term, it means a lot for the Bears and for Justin Fields. This was supposed to be the prove it or lose it season for Fields. And if he misses significant time, he isn't adding anything else to his resume as the Bears decide on his future. And for the Bears, that's also the problem. If Fields misses a lot of time, your data is greatly shortened this season to figure out what you're going to do next. And if that actually goes for the current regime, if they're retained for some reason, but also for a new regime if the head coach gets fired, and especially if the GM gets fired, although I'm not sure that's going to happen. I know it would be tough to give Justin Fields 3 head coaches in his 4-year tenure, but someone is going to have to make that decision in the next few months. And I think the front office, the coaching staff, Fields himself, and the fans, for the most part, would like to see as much data as possible. So we'll see how long he's out and if it's going to be one of those lingering injuries.
Yeah, Matt Eberflus said they're going to know a little bit more by the end of the week, whether he's going to require surgery, which obviously would keep him out longer, probably 6 weeks. So, I mean, in terms of like what it means for the immediate future, I mean, like you said, they're not going to be winning football games, I don't think, which, I mean, that probably was the expectation anyways, right? I mean, it's frustrating, but like you said, it's more of like the long-term ramifications because we have 11 games left now, and Justin Fields needed every single one of those games to continue to go out there and prove that he can be the franchise guy. Ultimately, it's going to come down to Ryan Poles, right? He could have an opportunity because the Bears currently are projected to have the first 2 picks in the draft. The Panthers are on a bye week next week, so I mean they're not winning any games, so that's going to stay the number 1 pick. And if the Bears continue to lose, I mean, it's an important decision that Poles is going to have to make, even though I think we can agree that this team is more than a quarterback away from being a contender. But also this is, a big year for Fields, like you mentioned. So the sooner he can get back out there, the better.
And not to mention, if they do go in a different route with a new head coach, that new head coach and that new regime they're going to want to look to see what they have in Justin Fields. And if all they have to go off of is, the first 6 games, they may think, you know what, we're just going to start with a rookie quarterback. We're going to restart the rookie contract cycle. We're going to pay the guy nothing for 4 years and see if we can win that way. So it was in Fields' best interest to get as much good tape on his resume as possible. If Eberflus's staff is let go, you want to prove that you can still be the guy to the next coach. Although I don't know. I just think it was always my thought and my feeling that if they got a new head coach, there would also be a new quarterback in town.
Yeah, and it certainly doesn't help that Justin Fields still has not played an entire season in the NFL because he's going to miss Sunday. Most likely he's doubtful. So, I mean, it's frustrating because like we've seen, especially the last 2 weeks, that the talent and potential that Fields has, and there are bigger issues around him, but he is also part of the problem. So, the evaluation process over these final games, whenever he's able to come back, he's going to really need to put on a show.
Yeah, it's once again, nothing can be consistent with the Bears.
Of course. Welcome to our lives. So, John, we're going to move on from the quarterback to the coach. Matt Eberflus is now 4-19 as head coach of the Bears, and many fans have lost faith in this Bears coaching staff as a whole and want to see changes as soon as possible. So I'm going to ask you, is Matt Eberflus already a lame duck coach in week 7 of his 2nd season? You know the drill. 55 seconds.
Oh, woof. I'll say it this way. I don't think Ryan Poles is at the point where he knows if he's going to fire Matt Eberflus yet. I know the fans have made up their mind on it, and I can't say I blame them for that opinion. 1 win in almost a calendar year is enough to make anyone's blood boil. I'm just not sure what Matt Eberflus is going to say to Ryan Poles or Kevin Warren or George McCaskey at the end of the season that is going to convince them that they made any progress in year 2. I mean, they could end up having a worse record this year than they did last year when they stripped down the roster and basically tanked. After an offseason of spending money in free agency, having some of your players in your offensive and defensive scheme for a 2nd year, getting past the rookie head coach label, getting your offensive coordinator past that first-year play caller label, and yet you're still somehow a bigger dumpster fire than you were last year. So while I don't believe that decision has been made as of week 7, I do believe Eberflus probably needs a Hail Mary here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point, I have a strong feeling that they're going to move on from him. And the only thing I could think of is if he's going to somehow be here next year, because the importance is Justin Fields, right? Mm-hmm. And the development of, or if you have a new head coach, it's going to be whatever quarterback they bring in. But if it's Eberflus and Justin Fields, maybe it's more like, Luke Getsy's a scapegoat for everything. But the thing is, it's not just the offense, right? It's also the defense, and he is a defensive-minded head coach, and the Bears' defense has been the worst in the league since he's gotten here. So it's not – I feel like it's something where he'd have a hard time really kind of pointing the blame, on one specific person because when all of this is going wrong, when so much is going wrong, it's not just one person. So, I mean, I find it hard to believe that he's going to last beyond this year. But I do think at this point, I think he will make it to the end of the season, which is something – during that 14-game losing streak, we weren't sure of.
Well, even if they do make Getsy the scapegoat and they let him go, whatever offensive coordinator you do bring in is going to have his own system. So it's not like keeping Eberflus is going to be great for the continuity of Justin Fields because they're going to bring in a new offensive staff anyway. They're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive scheme. And so if you're going to do that because you want continuity with Justin Fields, you're really not doing that because Eberflus is a defensive-minded head coach and doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the schematics of the offense, I assume. So whoever they would, if they were going to put this all on Getsy and ship him out of town, you're still giving Justin Fields a new scheme, and for the third time in 4 years. So if you're going to make Getsy the scapegoat, you might as well send the Eberflus out of there too, because it's not like you're doing Justin Fields any favor by just keeping Eberflus there, because you're going to bring in a new offensive scheme anyway.
From your lips to God ears, please.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay, John, so we're doing a lot of forecasting in this segment, so let's stick with it. The Bears currently sit at 1-5, and they likely won't be favored in another game this season, maybe the Panthers game. So how many more potential wins do you realistically see left in the season? Wait, you know what? No. Feel free not to be realistic, because I don't think I want to hear this. You've got 55 seconds. Go for it.
This has just changed so dramatically since like early September, but this kind of plays into my last answer of how I forecasted Matt Eberflus's future with the team, because I see maybe 4 winnable games, but I think they probably only get 1 or 2 more. And I think they can keep up with Vegas this Sunday, but wouldn't necessarily bet on them to win. I think they can beat Carolina at home, and that's a Thursday night game, and it's in the Bears' best interest to beat the Panthers and hopefully keep them at the number 1 pick, although it's almost as broad as it is long at this point, because the Bears only have 1 win as well. But looking over the schedule, I think they can compete with the Cardinals, maybe the Falcons. But like I said, I don't expect them to win all of those winnable games, but I do expect them to be 1-score games, and they shouldn't be blowouts. So I guess all in all, at this point, are we really looking at 2-15 or a 3-14 record? That seriously pains me to say, because expectations were at least 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule. I mean, I think I could say 1 win, and that would be the Panthers game, which might be the only other game this season that they're favored in. But like you said, that's the frustrating thing, right? Is that these are winnable games. There are plenty of winnable games left on the schedule. Like you mentioned, the Raiders, the Panthers. I mean, Minnesota, they played them well, surprisingly. The offense could kind of get itself together. Arizona, Atlanta. I mean, Green Bay is not that good. Maybe getting a shot at them at the last game of the season might do something. I mean, there are winnable games on there, but I don't know how confident I am to say that they're going to win more than 1 or 2, maybe. And like you said, that is disappointing, because we had such high expectations for this team. But I mean, when we went through the schedule game by game, I'm like, I don't want that to surface.
No,
it's like freezing cold takes.
It's embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing if you look back on it. Now I'm not gonna run away from it, because I was wrong. I'm wrong all the time. If you're gonna get on me for being wrong, then you clearly have not been watching this show for very long, because I'm wrong about everything. So it was bad that it's upsetting that we had those expectations. And honestly, it felt like the season was lost almost at the end of September. That's what, like in September, early October, it's like, okay, the season's lost. What can they do? And that's what really was disheartening, because the season felt like it was over so fast after all the buildup for 6-7 months, and the things that they added and what we thought they could do. We weren't necessarily thinking Super Bowl or even the division, but they should have been in the hunt when it comes to trying to get a wild card spot. And that just they didn't even get out of the gate. The gate opened and they just fell down. Like that's basically what it was. It was disheartening from the start.
Yeah, that was my thing too. I expected them to contend for a playoff spot. Like you said, be in the hunt. Was looking forward to it. And then it really did feel like after that Packers loss in week 1, to me, it just felt like, it kind of felt, I know it's 1 game, but it felt like it was over because things just didn't feel right. Like the offense didn't look like it was supposed to look. The defense looked worse, even though their improvements had been made. And it felt like more of the same. And it was just so deflating. And then obviously the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks with the Broncos game too. I mean, it's not fun. I mean, when you're already doing mock drafts at this point, or doing mock drafts before week 6 or week 5 or whatnot, and talking about draft order, I mean, it's not fun.
No, it sucks, because like you have all this anticipation, and you're so excited, and I was so geared up for not just the Bears, but for football season in general, and it just makes it hard whenever it's been so long, and I love watching football, and I watch some of these good teams play, like Kansas City and Buffalo and Philadelphia, and you see them having these really good games, competitive games, and they pull it out, and you're like, wow, like, I don't get to see that with my team. Like, I don't, honestly, I don't have that confidence. Like I grew up near Pittsburgh. And so Steeler fans are some of the most confident fans you're ever going to come across, because even no matter what their roster is like, they're expecting to win. Their expectation is we will win this game. I don't care if Kenny Pickett is our quarterback, if Mitch Trubisky is our quarterback. We'll have 25 sacks and we'll have our defense score 15 points if we have to. We're going to win this game. That's the mentality that other fan bases have. And I just don't know if I've ever had that feeling. Maybe in the early 2000s when the defense was incredible, and I was just like, wow, okay, maybe just get the ball to Devin Hester or let the defense score on an interception or a fumble recovery. That's kind of how it felt. But it's been a long time since you just like, oh, they're gonna pull it out. They're gonna be fine. They're gonna pull it out. I just haven't had that feeling. Like, that sucks that other fan bases get to have that. It's like it's a foreign language to me.
I mean, like you just mentioned, that was almost 20 years ago.
Oh God, yeah.
The last time, and it's frustrating too, because you see like a team like the Lions, who, trust me, having a Detroit family and like, man, Detroit sports in general, but Lions fans have really been put through the ringer, and to see them finally turn the corner, and it's like, okay, but what about us? Like, right, when are the Bears going to be able to turn a corner, finally get there? I mean, like you said, it's frustrating because of the anticipation, and it really felt like fans were ready for this season. They were ready for the Bears to contend, even if they weren't going to contend for the playoffs, even if they weren't going to make it, right? We're expecting something better, which they couldn't even give us like a month. Couldn't even get out of September before we were already. We got one half maybe, but it was frustrating.
Right. Yeah. And then, they give you one little, nugget on a Thursday night, and then it's back to, you got what you needed. You got your one win. So let's go back to what we're doing.
Yay. So we're going to end on something fun, which is something we don't get to do very often here, because we brought the mood down there a little bit. So once again, you will be attending the Bears game this weekend against the Raiders. So you were also in attendance when the Bears tallied their only win of the season, of the last 16 games, mind you. So John, do you believe your good luck will translate into another Bears win? And what are you expecting during your trip to Chicago? No clock? Let's hear it.
Oh, man, I am so excited to get back to Chicago that not even the Bears can ruin it. I'm traveling with my brother, and the Buffone boys are going to be running free in the Windy City. We're going to be visiting family, eating pizza, hanging with the barflies. Some of my fellow barroom hosts will be taking in the sights. And yes, we'll be making our way over to Soldier Field to watch our Bears take on the Las Vegas Raiders. And there's truly something special about attending a game in person, regardless of the record. When you're in the stands and you're watching your team, you are so emotionally invested. It feels like the Super Bowl because you're there. It doesn't matter if you're a contender or you're the worst team in the league. You want your team to win because you're in the stadium. So I love being in Chicago, and I'm really going to enjoy this weekend being around some incredible people. And one thing is for sure, Buffone is ready to bear down, baby. That'll do it for the B55 segment. After this message, we'll preview the Las Vegas Raiders and talk with Danny Shimon, the Barroom's lead analyst.
The fall is where we rock here at the Barroom Network, with over 15 shows scheduled from September to January. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Network's YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Buffone 55. This week, the Bears take on a Las Vegas Raiders team that's coming off a win over the New England Patriots. Aldo Gandia previews a 3-3 team that could be beatable on Sunday.
The autumn wind is a pirate.
The mythology of the Raiders was established decades ago, an aura of danger, fight, and wins. But for the past 20 years, that aura has evaporated.
Darren Sproles gives the Chargers the lead with 18 seconds remaining. What a great...
2 winning seasons since 2003. Now the Raiders, coached by someone unfamiliar to losing when he was offensive coordinator of the Patriots, Josh McDaniel, is trying to bring back the Raiders of old. Victories over the Packers and Patriots have been led by a rollicking and boisterous defense.
Picked off! Spillane right to him.
In the last 3 games, the defense has allowed an average of 18 points. That's a full touchdown better than what they finished with last year. Turnovers are a big part of that equation.
You get turnovers, it leads to wins. So obviously that's going to be a point of emphasis for every defense throughout the league. And I'm just happy that guys are seeing the results of their hard work. Work on it every day.
All right, let's work. Come on, ready to rock.
There it is.
Propelling the defense has been the defensive line, featuring Max Crosby and his 5.5 sacks and 8 tackles for loss.
The energy level from the whole group, from Jank to Bilal to AB to Tillery, all those guys working hard together, and Max is their leader in terms of being the leader of the defense and the defensive line. You can see them starting really to gel together, working hard together, and getting some results from their hard work.
The defensive line is effective against the run, but fans want to see first-round draft pick Tyree Wilson get his first sack.
Tyree, started with you, bro.
2 weeks ago, the defense hated on Jordan Love and the Packers, intercepting him 3 times. Linebacker Robert Spillane had 2 of them.
Spillane there to clean it up.
The Raiders have only allowed 10 completions of 20-plus yards this season, the fewest in the NFL. A big reason why is the play of safety Trevon Moehrig.
They're getting pressure up front, make the quarterback move around. It makes our job easier on the coverage end. So,
yeah, man. I think the defense in general, man. If you look at them these last 2 weeks, I feel like they're starting to have an identity, man. They've been carrying us a little bit.
The offense isn't making defenses shake and quiver and quake, especially with an injury to Jimmy Garoppolo that could keep him out Sunday. When Brian Hoyer took the field to replace Garoppolo, the greeting wasn't very receptive.
To hear the fans boom and shit was kind of crazy, but he came out there and bombed them and shut them up. So
Picked up. Hoyer launches. Man is open. Down to the 20-yard line. What a throw.
Fans thought Aiden O'Connell's impressive preseason should have elevated him, but the rookie fumbled twice in his lone start this season against the Chargers. With Garoppolo not practicing Wednesday and Hoyer leading 2 scoring drives in the second half, the veteran backup is the likely starter against another one of his former teams.
The fact that we've played 3 guys already certainly doesn't hurt. It's not ideal in terms of what you want to do, but they both got game experience. They both, have had to operate our offense in critical situations in close games. So that's helpful for them too.
On Sunday, Josh Jacobs reached the milestone, 5,000 career rushing yards. But the Raiders' ground game this season ranks near the bottom of the league. They average over 60 fewer yards than the Bears do in their rushing game. Another challenge for the Raiders' offense is getting Davante Adams more involved. He's had only 6 catches in the Raiders' 2 wins, and no touchdowns since the team's Week 2 loss to the Steelers. Jacoby Myers leads the team with 4 touchdown catches.
Touchdown, Jacoby Myers. Raiders on top.
Part of the problem with scoring for the Raiders is their red zone performance. Their scoring percentage is trending down. Good news in the red zone could be coming from rookie Michael Mayer.
I really like him. I think his future is really bright, and you're going to see him be more involved in this offense every week.
I think there's going to be a lot more of that for sure.
According to Pro Football Focus, the Raiders' offensive line is trending up with Colton Miller leading the way. He did not allow a pass pressure against the Patriots.
And a 53-yard try by Daniel.
Place kicker Daniel Carlson missed 2 of 3 field goal attempts against the Packers, but was perfect versus the Patriots. Punter A.J. Cole has been outstanding at flipping the field for the Raiders.
And the Raiders defense will have very, very good field position against the Bronco offense. Oh my.
The NFL Films poem ends this way. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you around and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. we'll see this Sunday at Soldier Field against the Bears. For Buffone 55, I'm Aldo Gandia.
Ooh, that autumn wind music just gets me all tingly.
Fantastic.
I love that. Great job again by Aldo Gandia. Holy smokes, is that guy put together a video? It's like I'm watching it, but I'm just like at the same time I'm learning about the Raiders, but I'm like, damn, that he's just putting these things together very well. Let's bring on Danny Shimon, Barroom's lead analyst. Danny, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm telling you, Matt Eberflus, he missed it, right? Instead of hiring Phil Snow for his assistant, he should have hired Aldo Gandia. He would have previewed the upcoming opponent much better, much thoroughly than Mr. Phil Snow would have done it for him.
What else do you need from Aldo Gandia? What a asset to have here. But Danny, let's just jump right into it. This is a segment we call Buffone's Basement. We kind of have a free-for-all conversation here, but I do want to ask you and start off with this. The offense was explosive against Denver and Washington. Both of those were on the road, by the way. But what happened? Was it Matt Flores? Or Matt Flores? Was it Brian Flores? Was it a masterful scheme put together by Brian Flores? What happened when the Bears go from scoring 28 and 40 to a measly 13?
Yeah, well, John and Alyssa, the ugliness was back on offense. I mean, in terms of, the pass protection was shoddy at best. There was confusion up front in terms of who to guard. There was one play I saw where Whitehair and Ja'Tyre Carter turn around and block each other. I mean, literally,
it's going viral.
Each other. It was embarrassing. Obviously, for me, the initial drive, the play calling, I question in terms of coming out an empty set against a defense that's aggressive. And obviously the execution wasn't there. Someone missed the call, whether it's Justin with the hot read or the offensive line picking up the free defender. Obviously the first play, they got a sack that juices up the Vikings defense. Second play was a pitch out to Darrington Evans, loses 2 yards. Evans, who played a solid game, but was on the Dolphins practice squad a week ago. It was, and I know the Bears are dealing dealing injuries in the backfield, so I understand that part. But and then obviously the third play was a sack. So that first series really just gave the juice to the Vikings defense, and they came in and just they kind of knew. Matter of fact, Brad Biggs, a great reporter for the local Chicago Tribune, had a column where he talked to one of the defensive linemen for the Vikings, and he said, like, we knew their protection scheme that they don't slide guys over, and that they go five guys against where if you bring up 5 or 6 guys defenders up against the box. Again, that's the opponent talking like that, but it wasn't good. It wasn't pretty. Having said all that, it was a 1-score game at halftime, so the Bears were in it. Thankfully the defense kind of rallied, shut down the pathetic running attack of the Vikings. But then obviously the injury to Justin happened, and then the turnovers from Bagent. I think that was it. But yeah, it was just ugly in that first half. But that same stuff we saw in the first couple of games was kind of creeping back. Obviously the Nate Davis injury didn't help the offensive line continuity either. So a lot of bad there that first half.
Yeah, the GIF or the short video of the Bears offensive linemen blocking each other is making its rounds on social media, which as if the Bears didn't need more content for people to make fun of them for. Let's just keep throwing this video out with them blocking themselves.
Everyone's laughing at us.
Yeah, it's just another thing.
They only stopped for 1 week. They stopped laughing at us for 1 week, and then they start back laughing again.
Oh yeah, we got a 1 week reprieve from that, and then
they did it for you when you were at the game, and then for me on my birthday. So much appreciated, but now back to reality.
Yeah, we got a 1 week kind of vacation, and we're back on that. So Alyssa, I'm turning to you now. As we know, Tyson Bagent is probably the starter Sunday against the Raiders. Obviously, you watched him closely in the preseason, and now for a quarter and a half against the Vikings. What does your intuition tell you about Bagent? Do you sense what can you sense from his debut? What are you kind of forecasting here?
The first thing that really stood out was he's an undrafted rookie, right? We saw that with the mistakes that he was making. I mean, good on him for coming off the bench like that, stepping into that situation. And he did orchestrate the lone touchdown drive and scored on a rushing touchdown as well. But we also did see that, he is someone that's going to stand there in the pocket. And he was getting away with that in the preseason. He has a good feel for it. But this is the same offensive line that has almost gotten Justin Fields killed. So he learned pretty quickly that you can't do that. But, the thing that I did like watching him during the preseason was that, he didn't really get rattled. And we caught a glimpse of that too on Sunday. But with that said, he is young. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. This is going to be a roller coaster ride on Sunday. He had those 2 turnovers against the Vikings. And I think that having a week to prepare is definitely going to help him. And listening to his press conference today, he sounds just incredibly grateful for this opportunity. And he said that he's willing to go fight to the death out there with his guys, get as many wins as they can until Fields comes back. And we don't know when that's going to be. I don't know when they play the Panthers, which might be like 1 win we can pencil him in for. So I don't know. He said wins plural. So, he's optimistic too. I guess I can give him that. But, the one thing I will say, though, is that, he's someone that gets the ball out quickly, and he really does seem like the kind of quarterback that fits the offense that Luke Getsy wants to run. So I think that we're going to see him move the ball effectively, get it out quick, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's better than Fields. And I do think that Bears fans are going to notice Fields' absence in a big way in this game.
Yeah, and I said this after the game on Sunday, where he seemed so poised talking to the media. Obviously, that does not translate into being a great quarterback, but he did handle himself very well and actually answered the questions very well as to not throw anyone under the bus or to put anybody in a precarious situation. He basically he towed the line as a veteran quarterback would in a media interview. So I was impressed by that. But like I just said, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to lead the Bears to 28 or 35 points. It just means that I can already see that he is a high character player. Danny, given what you know about Bagent, what kind of game plan would you advise Luke Getsy to develop for the young rookie? Now we know that Getsy isn't always best at that, but what would you tell Luke Getsy to do with Tyson Bagent?
Well, John and Alyssa, I have 2 answers for you. I have my offense. My offense would be 12 personnel. I'd come out. I'd make sure I'd have 2 tight ends, or at least 1 tight end on either side that Max Crosby is on. Give Bagent some sort of calmness back there, knowing that you have 2 guys on Max Crosby, who's by far and away their best pass rusher. And then I would just establish the run and build my passing attack off of the play action and the run game. Bagent is for what he lacks in terms of experience. He's solid size of 6'3", 216. Doesn't have a cannon for arm, but pretty good arm strength. He's an athletic kid. You don't think of that, but he's a pretty athletic kid. So I still keep that play action, the boot action into it, give him some easy throws, get his confidence going. And then the one thing that he does have right now currently over Justin is he has that quick release. Alyssa mentioned it. A quick release, get the ball out of his hands. So a lot of quick game stuff, which is slip screens, bubble screens, get the ball out of his hands into the playmaker's hands. That was what I would do. Now, what I think Luke Getsy is going to do, because I personally, in my opinion, I think this is CYA time at Hallis Hall. I think they're going to go out there and prove that they need to keep their jobs. If not here, then put up some good tape for, in terms of resume for the other 31 teams. And I think he's going to go out there and he's going to run his offense. He's going to run his offense. He's not going to have the RPO stuff like with Justin in there, but he's going to run his offense. He's going to let Bagent go out and do this thing. And Bagent said today that actually the offense they ran at Shepherd was very similar to what they run here with the Bears. So, in terms of concepts and all that stuff, he's pretty familiar with it, right? So I think he's going to let him run his offense and say, hey, you know what? The Bears go up there and put up, 30 plus points. Gets to come back there and say, guys, it's not my fault. It's the guy pulling the trigger. And I think they have their scapegoat for the season. So I think that's what he's going to do. That's in my opinion. But if he wants to win, he'd protect the kid.
I think we speak for everyone. Can you be the Bears offensive coordinator this week? Or moving forward. You know how to fit a scheme to fit the players. Okay, so I've actually got a question for both of you guys. So we're a little past the 3rd mark of the season, which it's flying by pretty quickly, all things considered. So let's hand out some grades. So I've got 3 names for you on offense, and then I'm going to ask you about some of the players on defense. So let's start with, we were just talking about offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. What grade would you give him through the first third of the season? John, let's start with you.
Oh God, I guess it's a D. I give him a tiny boost off of those 2 games in Denver and Washington because it seemed like he figured it out of how he should be using Justin Fields. But other than that, he just reverts back to, I don't know. It's just like, 3 screens. Okay, cool. Or let's just keep hammering away at this, or the protection is wrong. And so D, I know that's a passing grade, but a D is not something you want to hear out of your offensive coordinator, and that's probably enough to get you shipped out of town. So I'll give him a nice solid D.
Danny, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. A D is what I was thinking as well. And not only the offense looked out of sort the first couple of weeks. It took 3 weeks for them to finally get Justin going in those games against Denver and Washington. Obviously DJ Moore hasn't got off to a slow start, picked it up last couple of weeks. We're still waiting to see Darnell Mooney in this offense. Obviously the lack of progression that we've seen so far overall, and Justin also has to fall at the feet of the offensive coordinator. We talked about earlier in terms of the blocking. The block was confused who to block. First couple of games that happened. This past game that happened. Receivers early on not running at full speed off the snap of the ball. Look like they're not sure where to be, lining up two guys in the same spot. Just the whole offense looked like it was broken early on, and that all falls at the feet of the offensive coordinator, because he's pretty much the head coach of the offense. So this offense, besides those 2 games against Denver and Washington, this offense has looked broken and looked out of sync. And to me, it's a D grade for Luke Getsy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you too. I'm giving him a D, and the only reason he's not getting an F is because of the Broncos and Commanders games, but he very well could. Okay, so let's continue with quarterback Justin Fields. So, it's been an up and down year for him. And like you said, there have been a number of factors in how his season has gone so far, but how would you grade Justin Fields through the first 6 weeks? And Danny, let's start with you.
Well, I'm one of the biggest Justin backers out here, but to be honest with you, if I have to be honest here, I'd give him a C, just because of the fact that, again, the inconsistencies we've seen. Now a lot of it, I have kind of said, the offense isn't designed to kind of bring out his strengths. It's more of an offense, and they put in plays that they feel like Justin will excel at. Instead of breaking the whole offense down and making it, make him the center point of the offense. So we talked about earlier, the offensive line, in terms of some blocking issues, in terms of assignment issues, the receivers not really getting involved. So I think in terms of Justin, I think he needed to take the next step. Now, again, I don't want to make excuses for him. I do think some of this is part of the play calling and all that stuff, but I did still want to see him. I still see some of the things I saw last year. I saw some things staring down receivers, not pulling the trigger. He talked about the thing with early on with coaching being, kind of slowing him down, playing robotic. Why is that, Justin? Why are you not kind of going above your coaching and just letting your true talents, come out? So, he's a guy that doesn't, shouldn't deserve all the blame, but also, has to take some of it as well. So that's why overall I give him a C.
Yeah, I promise Danny and I did not coordinate our answers beforehand, but
Stop looking at my notes, man.
Yeah, C was my grade, and I mean I was gonna say incomplete, but I thought that was gonna be a complete cop out. So I'm saying C because it's one of those C's that you're really disappointed in. It's one of those tests that you study for and you cram for because you really want to get a good grade on it, and you're really hopeful and you really need this test and you really need this to bring up your GPA, and you study and you study and you study and you take the test and you get it back and you're just like, oh man, a C, crap. And I think that's the analogy here, because we had such high hopes going into this season that things were going to click and things were going to take that next step, and you see flashes of it, but it's just not consistent at this point. So I think that a disappointing C would be my grade for that.
Oh my God, it's a clean sweep again. I would agree, C average. I think he's been average. Hey, we're just all very well knowledgeable. So,
yeah, run the tape back. Run the tape back and see how knowledgeable.
Wait. No, that tape is burned.
It's gone.
Yeah. Let's not give ourselves too much credit, because there's plenty of proof that we're not that knowledgeable sometimes.
Hey,
we have our moments.
Here. They don't come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. C. I mean, he's been average, but like a lot of what Danny was saying too, just it's a lot of the same things we saw last year, and that's fine for a second season and first in that offense, but it's a second year in Luke Getsy's scheme. It's the same things, and you wanted to see him. We want to see him take that step. We've seen it at a couple of games, but I think inconsistency is his worst thing right now. He really needs to just hit his stride at this point. So we'll see. There's plenty of time left. But let's switch to DJ Moore. So, I mean, he's had some big games. He had a career game against the Commanders, our only win of the season, guys. So what grade would you give DJ Moore through the first third of the season? John, let's start with you.
Oh, it's an A. I'm giving the guy an A because he's the Bears have been waiting for a bona fide number one receiver, and this guy can do that. He's a yard after the catch guy. He can make the possession catches if he needed it. He can be a touchdown catching receiver, and I believe through the 6 games, he's already eclipsed what the leading receiver had for Chicago last year, which would have been Cole Kmet, over like 500 some yards. And right now he has 32 catches for 582 yards and 5 touchdowns. That would have led the Bears last year altogether. He would have been, if he stops right now, he would have been the leading receiver for the Bears in 2022. So it's got to be an A for me. They, if anything came out of that terrible tank last year, they get right in the draft. But DJ Moore coming over here to solidify himself as the number 1 receiver was huge, because he will be, no matter who the quarterback is moving forward or what the future is, DJ Moore is your number 1 receiver.
And what about you, Danny? What do you think?
This is our first difference here, John. I give him a B plus. Not that big of a gap, but I think obviously that the 2 big games against Denver and Washington were his real 2 big games. A lot of it say the first couple of games were just the offense was out of sync, everything was out of sync, so you can't really hold it against them, and that's true. So I want to see, but it's a B plus trending upwards. Right? I want to see him continue this, going here. How does he mesh with Tyson Bagent? Is it 1 game, 2 games? How does he continue to kind of, and once Justin gets back, how does he come back and continue that progression with Justin? What we saw against Washington is what everyone expects to see of a true number 1 receiver. So, and I'm obviously, I've been vocal in terms of when the trade was made, I wanted him to prove to me he is a number 1 receiver, in terms of guy that draws all the attention and still can produce. So he's trending in the upper direction for me. I'm positive about DJ Moore and his future here in Chicago.
Yeah, wow, we're actually all different here. I'm gonna give him an A plus. You want to know what?
Ooh.
He's been the best receiver that the Bears have had in a long time, and you kind of you look at too. Obviously the Washington game, he's had 1 or 3 100-yard receiving games this season, and it kind of makes you wonder what would have happened if they got him involved sooner and they targeted him more. Because I don't think for some of those games where he hasn't had as many receiving yards, how much of that is his fault? I remember that one drop, I think it was against the Chiefs or whatnot. For the most part, I'm leaning more A plus. It's like between A plus. He's just been on fire. He's been a great addition to this offense. It really makes you wonder just how bad they could be if he wasn't on the team. So, I think he's helped Justin Fields out a lot. We want to get him more involved. It shouldn't be that hard, Luke Getsy. Come on. But, like Danny said, it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with Bagent, who they haven't really had a chance to develop that chemistry yet, but they're going to have to do it quickly.
Alyssa, how many A plus did you give out whenever you were a teacher?
Maybe 1 when they.
Okay, so I have in high regard. You're holding DJ Moore in very high regards. He's like actually, 1 or 2 A pluses you've given out in your life.
I've given out a few, and normally I'd have a bonus question where you'd have to tell me, who's my favorite team, and everyone knew, so they get some bonus points there.
Moore, real quick. Sorry to cut you off. One thing about Moore, I want him to see him be more aggressive in terms of asking for the ball, demanding the football. He's an easygoing guy. Sure. He's like, we'll go with the play flow, whatever the call is, progression. Dude, if you're a number 1 receiver, you're the guy that wants to be the guy in this offense in terms of the number 1 option. Go and tell him, Justin or it's Bagent, whoever it is, give me a damn ball. Sure. There's a couple plays where he was wide open down the sideline. Talk to Justin, like, listen, look at me every damn time. I should be your first option. Just kind of be one of those divas, like a lot of these receivers are. Just ask for. Don't be a Stephon Diggs. I'm not saying do that, but just be a guy that demands.
Be a mini diva.
You are.
Well, Jamar Chase.
But it calls for it.
Jamar Chase in his post game interview saying, "I'm always, effing open." That's
see his little medallion. 7-Eleven logo is his new medallion.
Open 24/7.
I love it. Okay, so guys, we're gonna switch to the defense. Great. So I know, this is gonna be just
if you have an A on defense, I'm gonna question you, Alyssa.
No, I got none.
Okay.
None. Okay, so let's start with Matt Eberflus, and we're gonna focus on him as a defensive play caller since he took over for Alan Williams in week 2. So Danny, let's start with you. What grade are you gonna give Eberflus for his role as defensive play caller through the first third of the season?
Well, I'll give him a B minus. I'm going to be nice to Matt Eberflus because I think as a defensive play caller, unfortunately it took him 4 weeks to finally figure out his front 4 can't get to the quarterback, so he's going to start blitzing. So I think once he started becoming aggressive and started bringing blitzes from all 3 levels, the slot corner, the safeties, the linebackers, it continued it last week a little bit, not as much as Washington, but it continued it last week. I think we saw the defense kind of rally around that. We saw the defense liking playing aggressive. We saw the defense rallying to the football. You saw some turnovers being created on defense. So I think as a play caller, I think I'll give him a B minus. as long as he continues to keep that aggressiveness. And now once he gets his defensive line or a consistency from defensive line in terms of, providing pressure, he can maybe stop with the blitzing and kind of just time it here and there. But until then, he's got to continue to be aggressive and continue to try and force the other quarterback off his spot and try and force something in terms of a sack, a turnover, an errant throw, something like that.
Yeah, I'm giving him a C, and that's because we're grading on a curve, because the bar was set so low that before he took over play calling duties that, it could only go up. I don't see how it could have gotten any worse. And so I think that they have improved, but I'm giving him a C because this was supposed to be the side of the ball where they invested all this money in, and it was supposed to be a strength outside. I mean, they invested draft picks into the defensive line. They invested a ton of money into linebackers. The secondary was supposed to be a strength to this team with all the with all the young talent they have back there, and they still struggle at times. And so I'm encouraged by what I saw last Sunday, and that grade can change from a C and go up if they continue to do what they're doing. But as it is holistically, from the data we have now, I can only give a C for that.
I'm going to go with an A. No, I'm joking. That's a joke. Okay. That is I'm actually going to give him a C-. And it's a lot of the reasons what John was talking about too. And, you're upgrading this defensive roster. You're expecting it to be better than it was last year. We could excuse him last season because it was just a god-awful roster that he had to work with. But you're a defensive-minded head coach. You were brought here. Defense should not be an issue. And they rank dead last or near dead last in most defensive categories, except for one, which is they're actually pretty solid against the run right now. So, he was thrown into a rough spot, and it's hard to, be the head coach and to be the defensive coordinator. I get it. But at the same time, it's just, and like Danny was saying, it took him 4 weeks to realize that just rushing your front four is not going to get it done. And it's like, wait, why did it take you that long, right? Just like Luke Getsy, why did it take you that long to realize go after DJ more and more? So, just, again, it could change. I am, like John said, encouraged by last week's performance, but we'll see if they can continue against the Raiders. Maybe that's C-.
Guys, I can't be the guy giving him a higher grade here. I'm the one asking for him to depart. That's can't happen.
Well, we were grading him strictly as a defensive play caller. We're not grading him as a head coach.
Yes,
we were grading him as a defensive.
Some people in the chat were kind of asking that question.
This was certainly not about his grade as a head coach.
No,
this is about strictly as a defensive play caller. Let's make sure that we're not getting that twisted.
As a head coach, F-.
Sure.
Yeah, F-.
Yeah.
G. I don't think
you give G.
G, just for god awful. Okay, so let's switch to one of the big additions to the defensive line, Yannick Ngakoue this season. So, John, let's start with you. What grade would you give Ngakoue through the first third of the season?
Oh, I guess a C, maybe a C-. When you give that guy a 1-year deal, he's not really in the long-term plans, but he only has 2 sacks, and I guess my math is terrible. That would put him on track for what, 5.5 sacks or something for the year, maybe 6 sacks. Am I in the ballpark there? And so I'm going C- because you're hoping that you bring him in as a defensive pass rush specialist, he's going to get you 8, 9, maybe 10 sacks. And it's just, he's not really on track. He's getting pressure on the quarterback. He has a little issues, finishing those sacks, but you'd like to see that number be a little bit higher for what they're paying. There is a reason that he didn't get picked up until the Bears did sign him. So you have to take that into account. We can't expect that this guy was going to be a 15 sack guy just for signing him off the street, as late as they did. But you'd like to see that number just a little bit higher for what they were expecting from him. So I'm gonna give him. I'll be nice. I'll say C.
Danny. Okay, Danny, what about you?
I'm going C-. I'm sticking to my guns. This is the guy that I actually was hoping they would sign. They wouldn't sign. I was excited when they signed him. He's a designated pass rusher, a guy that can get you about 8.5 to 9 to 10 sacks a season. But so far, in terms of, he has been no production whatsoever, no impact whatsoever. Only 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback quarterback hits. His run defense is as bad as advertised. I mean, he always on RPO plays, he's always diving at the inside, allowing that gap to be wide open on the outside. If the running back has it or a quarterback keeps it, they just run through there. No run defense integrity whatsoever. Doesn't set a hard edge. Totally. Again, his job was to get after the quarterback and get pressure, and he hasn't been doing that. Only 2 sacks. I know he missed one against Baker Mayfield. Couldn't wrap him up, bring him down. So 2 sacks, C-. He's lucky he didn't get a D from me.
Yeah, I'd actually have to agree with Danny there. I'm giving him a C- and just handing out C- now. I mean, for the money that you paid him, $10 million, his job is to get after the quarterback. And, he's been good for 8 sacks a season every year he's been in the league. And by John's math, because I didn't do the math, he's going to fall short of that, which is just, the first time in his career, it's just
Thank
bad.
you for trusting my math, by the way.
I'm trusting your math because I'm just not doing it. I'm just not doing it. But yeah, it's been disappointing, their pass rush as a whole. It's unfair just to expect him to come in and kind of do everything. But, they did bring him in for a reason. That's to get after the quarterback. We'll see if that changes as the year goes on because defense is trending up. But I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that. So I'm going to stick with a C-.
It's one thing if he was drawing double teams and getting chips from running backs and tight ends. He's not even getting it's one-on-one. He can't win one-on-one. So that's the thing.
Only in Chicago.
Of course.
That's what we have to deal with. Okay, so we're going to wrap our grades up, and we're going to go to TJ Edwards, one of the 2 big linebacker additions that the Bears added this offseason. So, Danny, what grade would you give TJ Edwards through the first 6 games?
Really, Edwards is a solid linebacker, solid player, nothing spectacular. I just give him a C. It's a meh for me, really, to be honest with you. He's a guy that's a good dude, local product. Is heady linebacker, but recently we saw him. Last week we saw him get a sack on a blitz. So maybe if Eberflus start using him a little bit more aggressively, you see him come on blitzes, and you can see him make more of an impact. But really, he's just a guy out there. Actually, I noticed last week that they played a little bit more base, meaning that they used Jack Sanborn at the 3 linebackers, and Sanborn for me popped on tape more than Edwards, other than when he blitzed and got the sack. So. Again, just a meh guy, average guy. So I gave him average grade a C.
Hey, what about you, John?
I'm going with a B because for what they're they didn't wrap up a huge contract with the guy, and so I was trying to on the fly look up his number or look up the contract number. I remember it not being anything.
It's like $5 million.
Yeah, it's not anything crazy, and he's tied for the lead in sacks on the team with 2, but also is leading the team in total tackles. So if you look on return on investment, I'm giving him a B. He's solid. He's playing solid. His stats are solid, and he's available. Some of the best ability is availability. He hasn't been knocked out of the lineup yet. I think that's a real solid showing, and I think that's worthy of a B.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give him a B-. He's definitely been better than Tremaine Edmonds. I agree with Cliff Victoria, who was saying that, and leading the team in tackles, tied with Ngakoue, who's supposed to be your top edge rusher, in sacks. I think he's been solid so far, coming off a really good game against the Vikings. So again, we'll see. Grades could change. We're only a third of the way through the season, but I definitely think that Edwards has stood out more than Edmonds.
Well, I give this game a B+, potentially even an A, because we had some good banter back and forth. But now it's time to get to brass tacks, the big news coming out of Hallis Hall. Danny, Alyssa, yes. Phil Snow, the new new senior defensive analyst. Alyssa, tell us what you have learned about Snow's career and why he's qualified for this position.
Yeah, so Snow, he boasts 40 years of experience between both the NFL and college levels, and most recently served as the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers under Matt Rule from 2020 to 2022. So many Panthers connections between the Bears and the Panthers. It's crazy. And the Panthers defense under Snow last season, they ranked 22nd in yards allowed, 19th in points allowed. And he kind of going back to his college days, he also was the defensive coordinator for Rule at Temple and Baylor. And he didn't join Rule's staff at Nebraska this year, which is obviously allowing this move to happen. But, Snow did work as an assistant under Rod Marinelli with the Lions. So as we know, Marinelli, that's Eberflus's guy, that's his mentor. So it's definitely a move that makes sense here. And I think that, Snow is familiar with the schemes that Eberflus runs. Eberflus even said that he values that, but also the different experiences that he has as a coach bringing it here, including the use of different pressure looks. And As far as Snow's role goes, he's just going to work at Hallis Hall throughout the week, focus on advanced scouting with future opponents. Though I think, Danny Shimon could give him a run for his money. He will not be at games functioning as any kind of coach, but he's just going to kind of do the behind the scenes work.
Danny, you've been calling for some sort of, consultant, or I guess in this case, an analyst. What have you learned about Snow's coaching style and how he can potentially help the Bears defense get consistently better? And I'll add to that, what do you think the responsibilities that Eberflus outlined are sufficient for Snow to actually make an impact on the team?
Well, I mean, Alyssa made a good point. Like, his NFL experience is limited, right? It's the last 3 years with Carolina, which was really not that great. And then also the big thing there, the big connection there is with Rod Marinelli with Detroit, where he was a linebackers coach and an defensive assistant. So in terms of what he thinks, obviously he's another guy that believes in that 4-3 concept, the zone concept, drop back, rush, get with your 4 guys. And under Snow in Carolina, Brian Burns really developed into the pass rusher he is now. In the first 2 years, he had back-to-back 9 sack seasons. Last year at 12.5. So I think obviously he's a guy that generates that, wants to generate that pressure up front. He's a guy that values getting off the field on 3rd and 4th downs. And he's a guy that he mentioned when you hear him talk, he's a guy that doesn't really want to rattle the cages early on early downs, but if he has to, will bring some disguises, some blitzes early on 1st and 2nd down to get them in a 3rd and long situation to hopefully get the defense off the football field. So, you watch him talk, he's a very detail-oriented person. In terms of how much impact he'll have on Matt Eberflus come on game days, obviously, as Alyssa just mentioned, he's not going to be there calling plays on game days. So what he's going to do is basically he's going to go ahead and just start watching the next week's opponent. So, for example, he's probably already breaking down Chargers tape for next week, and he's going to go through and kind of say, all right, in 3rd and long situations, these are some of the personnels he likes. This is some of the looks they might like. We can maybe counteract them with this or that. Red zone situations, this is what they look for this here in the red zone. These are the kind of things he'll give Matt Eberflus during the week. Then obviously Eberflus will then, I'm assuming Snow will have some sort of input in terms of the overall game plan, but obviously the actual game caller, the play caller on game day will be Eberflus. So I think that's where he'll kind of give, because of all the things that are on Matt Eberflus's plate right now, as being the head coach, being a defensive coordinator, doing some advanced scouting for the previous upcoming opponent. I think this is where he will help kind of take some of that pressure off Eberflus and hopefully give him another voice to kind of help him deliver a game plan that will be effective on Sundays.
Correct. Yeah. And so we'll see if this has any impact. We'll see if the play of the defense goes up. And if it does, people will be talking about how Snow is impacting the defense. And so we'll see how that ride happens. And just when you thought the grade game was over, it's not over. I'm taking it over. We got a question in the chat room from Laz. He says, I know it's still relatively early, but what grade are you giving polls? I'd say C-, but trending to an F, but give him a trophy. Danny, you are the biggest Ryan Poles supporter, and I'm using that term not seriously at all. So what is your grade for Ryan Poles so far in his young tenure as the Bears GM?
Last, stick to your guns there. Give him that F, man. Don't give him no trophy. I'm not a Ryan Poles fan. And some might say it's too early to judge, and that might be the case. But so far, I haven't seen anything that he's done that's been a positive impact on this organization, right? In terms of the coaching hire, in terms of the trades, free agent moves, maybe you might say DJ Moore was the best trade he made, but then he gave up the first overall pick in order to get him as part of a package. So, that could end up being something that helps set up the Bears in the future. But in terms of immediate impact guys, the culture, you kept talking about the culture they're building and him and Eberflus, and it's been nothing but a losing culture. Like he comes in and he says, oh, we're going to take the North, never give it back. Dude, I don't think you're going to even get near the top of the North. So I'm not sure what do you mean you're going to take it and never give it back. So he's a guy that I'm totally fed up with. If they clean house, he'd be one of the first guys I let go.
Maybe he meant Northern Illinois. Like we don't know. Alyssa, what grade do you give him, Poles?
I'm gonna give him a C- right now, just because I respect him for coming in and just tearing the whole thing down. Which is like the opposite of what Ryan Pace did. So, it's going to take a little bit, and I understand that he does have a lot of big just red flags against him, including like the Chase Claypool trade and obviously the hiring of Matt Eberflus. But I also think he's made some good moves. His draft classes, there are some, developmental guys in there. There's some solid rookies that, cornerstone pieces I think will be around on this team. And of course the DJ Moore trade I think was his biggest so far. It's definitely an evolving grade. I mean, I'm not going to give him an F. I'm not that extreme, but I'm definitely more kind of like the C- range. We'll see. He's around average, maybe a little bit below, but I mean, he's still got some time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that C minus range as well, just because we got to see how these draft picks develop, and if they turn into something, then that's obviously going to bring his grade up. But they're the culture, Danny, you're right. What culture have they developed? I mean, they haven't won in that. You can't set a big culture in Chicago if you haven't won a game in Chicago in over a year. Like that's difficult to do. And so they've botched a lot of things. Alyssa had mentioned the Claypool trade, and not really addressing. Some of the best teams start from the inside out, and they just haven't been able to really take care of that yet. So we'll see. I mean, it's easy to tear a team down. It's easy to sell off everything. It's easy to, acquire all that, but it's like, I'm trading everything and we're stripping it down. A lot of people can do that. So it's still a building process, but man, it did not take the step that we needed it to take this year. We all of the fans wanted to see that next step. We wanted to see that next building block in the rebuild process. They tore it down. They just haven't built anything yet. So
when you tear it down, but you don't attack the offense and defensive lines, that loses my respect right there, because you got to go with the trenches to build that team back up again. And because we're coming into a pivotal offseason for this organization, right? We've got the two top 5, top 10 picks potentially, I think 90 million in cap space. Do you have faith that this is the guy you want running the ship going into this offseason? I don't have faith in him. So I think if you're going to start from scratch, build it all, bring in someone else. If you have some building blocks, again, the draft class, it's too early to tell. None of the guys have gone and taken a next step up, in my opinion. And that could be blamed on the coaching staff in terms of, not really, producing those guys and elevating their level of play. But Jaquan Brisker, for example, I mean, a talented kid, but he's just not a difference maker out there right now. Gordon was supposed to take the next step. I know he's been hurt, so we'll see how that goes. But, Dominique Robinson, a 5th-round pick, guy keeps playing, but doesn't make no impact whatsoever. Stuff like that, there's nothing here that he has done. And again, I'm not even holding his draft class. Again, 2-3 years is where you need to actually give a nice, good quality grade to a draft class. But just in terms of free agency, coaching hires, stuff he's done to this organization to make it better, I just don't see it with Ryan Poles.
And then that leaves the question of, do the people above Poles, if they decide that they're going to move off Justin Fields and bring in a new head coach, do they trust Poles in drafting that new quarterback? Now, if they have the number 1 pick, it shouldn't be, it's a pretty obvious who they would probably take with that number 1 pick. But if they're going to take a quarterback that's not Caleb Williams, are you trusting him to make that decision? And are you trusting him to hire somebody that can develop that quarterback, no matter who it is? So there's a lot of questions that need answered here at the end of the season. And unfortunately, we keep talking about the end of the season. We were talking about the end of the season in September.
It's week 7.
Yeah, that sucks that we're still talking about this, and we've been talking about it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and we barely got out of the summer month before we were talking about what the Bears are going to do in the draft and who their new head coach is going to be. But Alyssa, let's get back to the conversation at hand. Let's talk about the team as it is. The defense did play well against the Vikings. Were there a couple of things that stood out specifically to you, like a scheme or a player or anything like that?
I mean, I think the linebackers as a whole had a strong outing, definitely their best of the season. TJ Edwards and Jack Sanborn tied for a team high 8 tackles. Obviously, we had Edwards had his best game of the season with those tackles, had a sack. And then he should have had that crucial fumble recovery that was clearly recovered. Don't know what happened there at the refs. And even Edmonds, he's had a rough season so far, but he had his best game of the year too, with 6 tackles, a pass breakup, and an interception that was actually ruled a fumble recovery. So definitely give it up for the linebackers in this game. And I think Justin Jones too, he had his best game of the year, 7 tackles, 2 for a loss, had a couple of quarterback hits there. And actually something that's been surprisingly good this year has been the run defense. It's been one of the better units in the NFL. They're allowing 89.5 rushing yards per game. That's 8th. And especially after, they had I think they were ranked 31st against the run last season. The fact that they are now in the top 10 I mean, that's pretty impressive. Granted, teams don't need to run the ball as much on them when they can just kind of exploit that struggling passing defense, but still it's progress, and that's really hard to find.
Progress in one way and dysfunction the other way. Once again, never can get on the same page on two different, even within the defense, they can't get on the same page. But you know what? Let's finish with expectations for this coming Sunday against the Raiders. Danny, Vegas comes into town on a 2-game win streak, a second-string quarterback, and a too much to handle Max Crosby. What do you see in this matchup? Can the Bears get out of Soldier Field with a win?
Well, John, I mean, if you lose a game at home to Josh McDaniels' coach team led by Brian Hoyer at quarterback, I mean, that's pretty sad. I mean, stop me if I've heard this before, guys. This is a winnable game. So to me, it's just, do they put up, in terms of enough points on offense? How does Tyson Bagent look? Again, he's a guy that intrigues me. I mean, I'm interested in watching him play this week because, again, the stage is not too big for this kid. You watch him today handling the media, very calm, cool, looks like a veteran out there. And, he's got good pocket presence, decent size, quick release. So I think this is a guy that can make some plays if given time. So obviously, I think, like I said earlier, max protect and just keep Crosby off of him. I think, give the offense some chance to put up some points. And if you can, and if the defense, does what they did last week, hold them to, 19 or less, I think they can go and pull a win off. But am I going to bet on it? Actually, you know what? John's going to be there, so I might actually bet on the Bears this time.
Lucky rabbit's foot.
Yeah, because I happened to be in the stadium the one time they won this year. I'm all of a sudden the good luck charm, so I will be there. Danny, to your point of Josh McDaniels and a backup quarterback, and they're at home. The Bears are 3-point underdogs.
Exactly.
Like according to Vegas, like the sharps in Vegas, not the team. They are 3-point underdogs going into this.
Yes.
One.
If that's not rock bottom, I mean, how much farther down can we go?
I don't know, Danny. They were underdogs at where they were. The Denver game was at home, right? Or was it
right? It was here, but they were only 2.5 point underdogs to a Sean Payton coach team, but led by Russell Wilson.
Who gave up 70 points?
You have a downgrade to head coach and a downgrade in quarterback, and you're on a 3-point underdog.
Well, what rock bottom will be? Rock bottom will be if they are underdogs at home to the Panthers.
That can't.
I caught you earlier talking about Carolina could be their next win. Carolina's saying, "Oh, we're going to get our first win against the Bears," right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had that thought, and I forgot to say it whenever that conversation was going on. I'm like, yeah, we're looking at these winnable games. All those teams are saying the exact same thing about Chicago. They're like, that's a winnable game. We can beat the Bears. Like all of that. It's not like they're like, oh man, Chicago, there's a loss. There ain't no team saying that.
It's been a while.
Where everyone's get right game. Everyone can get right against the Bears. Alyssa, what are your expectations, if you have any, against the Raiders this week?
Well, I do know that you're going to be at the game. So is it wrong that I'm assuming that there's a win? I mean, you broke the 14-game losing streak. You're going to break the year plus home losing streak. I think they lost 10 in a row at home. So you're going to break that one too. So I don't know, maybe good things will happen. I'm hoping. I mean, I'm excited to see Tyson Bagent out there. It's a better situation than if the Bears had like PJ Walker, right? And he was going in there in relief of Fields. At least you have a rookie, someone who's developing, and that you want to see what you have in him. So, I mean, that'll be something new for us to watch and to discuss. And I don't know, John, lucky rabbit foot. So I'm holding out for a win. So I'm going to come screaming at you if they don't.
Excellent. I will be happy to take that. And you make a really good point, because I think I heard this on a Bears show, and I can't remember which one, but it's like, it's the first time where like a Bears backup quarterback is like, okay, there's something to watch there. There's something to that. There's some kind of unknown weird hope to that, to see what you have in Tyson Bagent, as opposed to what,
Nathan Peterman.
Nate Peterman or Jimmy Clausen or Caleb Haney, or like some of
the list is too long, John. We'll be here all night.
Stop killing me.
I'm not even naming like starters. I'm naming some of the backups.
Oh.
So
P.T. Willis. Remember P.T. Willis? He was the next hope.
P.T. Cruiser. So it was there's a long list of Bears starting quarterbacks, so I'm not even going to start the list of the Bears backup quarterbacks. But my point was, this is the first time in a while where a backup comes in. You're like, oh, I wonder what this guy's got. I mean, you kind of had that tiny bit whenever Nick Foles was there, but you already knew what Nick Foles was. You just wanted to get him in rather than Trubisky. At least a lot of the fans did. And so it's the first time where it's like, okay, let's see what the kid has, because he's the backup. He's not a guy that's been in the league for, 10 years. And we kind of already know that what he's a given commodity. He's a proven commodity. We know what we're getting. We don't know what we're getting. So that adds a level of intrigue and possibly some entertainment purpose. So we'll see. So Tyson Bagent versus
I do like his moxie. I do like how he presents himself on the football field. I think he's got a chance to do well. And that would be great if they could take a kid from Division II and develop him, even if he developed into full-time backup or even potentially as a starter in the future, that's a hell of a find. So, I just knocked Ryan Poles. I just fired him. I just gave him props for finding Tyson Bagent possibly.
Well,
that's Luke Getsy's guy too. Remember, he worked at the Senior Bowl.
He coached him at the Senior Bowl, and obviously, he liked about him. He liked him in terms of, he didn't really pop at the Senior Bowl. At least when I watched the practices, he must have impressed him in the classroom, off the field. And obviously his terminology with Shepard, or his offense with Shepard, was very similar, as he said today, to what the Bears are running. So obviously Getsy had that offense down there at the Senior Bowl. So I think that what really attracted Getsy to him. And like I said, he plays with this calmness, this moxie, and this like. He's got like, if you want to say, aura about him, that in terms of like, he's confident out there. Even the veterans were saying, like Jalen Johnson was saying, like you could tell he doesn't carry himself like a Division II quarterback that's in awe in terms of what's around him right now. So we'll see.
So you're saying Tyson Bagent is going to save Luke Getsy's job?
He's got a chance.
Please, no.
That's
the combination of Bagent,
abort Nathan Peterman.
No, it's Bagent and Buffone. The killer bees are going to save.
That's gonna do it. Yeah. That's the most positive note we could possibly go out on. So let's wrap this puppy up. Alyssa, you got, I'm guessing, a lot of content coming out before this game and of course after the game. But what are we working on this week? What can we expect out of Bears Wire and the Wire in general?
Yeah, you can check out Bears Wire. We're previewing the game leading up to Sunday. I have my hot seat watch up there, which, as you can expect, it kind of accelerated this week. We have betting preview, we have breakdown analysis, all that. We're going to keep you covered during and after the game as well.
Danny, we put off the mock draft conversation for a week, and we got to get back into it now. So, what kind of tape are you watching? What are you working on?
Yeah, just working the college seniors right now, because obviously you don't know which junior is going to be declaring. But you have a good idea in terms of what you hear right now in terms of guys that are possibly coming out. But just working the senior tape. Obviously, still looking at the O-line, D-line, receiver, some quarterbacks here and there, but should be putting some stuff out on our YouTube channel here soon, some scouting previews in terms of guys, in terms of to keep an eye on as the season progresses here in college football. And then obviously after the game, myself and Coach T and Aldo will be doing the post-game show on Bear Football, talking about this big Raiders victory, or I'm sorry, the big victory over the Raiders led by Tyson Bagent and
Freudian slip.
Wait, which one?
The Killer Bees.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a Freudian.
Wait, which
slip.
one? Raiders victory or victory over the Raiders?
No, victory over the Raiders by the Bears.
There you go. Like Danny said, make sure you turn into Bear Football directly after the game. Aldo, Danny, and Coach T will be holding it down. I will be at the game, so I will not be on that show, but make sure you tune in. The three of them are going to share their immediate responses. Carrie, Matt Eberflus, and possibly Tyson Bagent's press conferences, and break down all of the key plays of the game. I will be at Soldier Field. I'm not going to let this team wreck my time in Chicago. I'm going to have a good time no matter what. Although if you see if you see a procession of people carrying a 6'2", 230-pound man out of Soldier Field, it might be me, because this team might actually kill me at some point.
Don't run on the field. Do not run onto the field. You see that happen to a Phillies fan?
Oh, yeah. Trust me, I ain't running nowhere. That ain't happening. I'm going to be sitting right down, enjoying the game, and then hopefully celebrating a win afterwards. I want to see a win at Soldier Field, and if I'm there, all the better. We haven't got to see a win at Soldier Field. And how long was that, Alyssa?
September 25th, 2022.
Boy,
week 3 of last year, guys.
10 straight games.
It's just great to be able to pull those stats real quick, to have somebody that can just give you the most depressing stats as soon as you need them. It's like, listen, what's a stat that's going to make me really upset? Oh, okay, I got one for you. I got 3 for you. Okay, great. But anyway, that'll do it for us tonight. For Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next week right here on Buffone 55. Try to enjoy the game, everybody. We'll see you next week.